All right. Hi, everyone. We've got some people trickling in. We're so grateful that you joined us today. Let's get you all set so that you can send some messages in the chat.
Yeah, please drop questions in the chat. There's a Q&A section, I think, as well, for to make it easier for us to kind of filter for questions. But submit questions you have about ObservePoint and AI and what you hope to get out of today. And if we have time at the end and we don't address it, we'd be happy to cover it today. So excited to have you guys here.
Yeah. If we haven't met, I'm Abby Pancoast. I am the product marketing manager here at ObservePoint. And this is Dylan Sellers. He is our VP of customer success. Give me just a second to enable the chat. Looks like it might work a little differently than it used to. Just a second.
Yeah. While Abby does that, just a reminder that these sessions are recorded, so you'll get access to the recording afterwards. We'll proactively send you an email. I just went and looked for the beeping, flashing red light, confirming we are recording, so we're live. And you'll get access to this afterwards. And if you want to share with a team member or just review any of the topics we discussed, you'll be able to do that. So, and this is also a great time for a plug to go back and look at our library of TipJar sessions. If this is your first time joining, or if you've only seen a couple, you can go back and look at a library of pre-recorded sessions. So.
All right, you all should be able to send questions in the chat now. Once we get started, feel free to send questions while we're talking. My favorite thing is to interrupt Dylan and ask him questions, throw him off his game. So let us know, and if we don't get to your question in real time, we'll get to it at the end. Like Dylan said, we're recording this session. We will send the email at the end with notes, all the links that we talk about, and a link to the recording. So you'll have all of that probably end of day today, maybe early tomorrow morning. So let's just quickly recap what we talked about in the previous tip jar. In episode 12, we talked about how to interpret an audit report. We went through a handful of the reports in your audit report. We went over the pages, tag inventory, tag health, and then duplicates and multiples, and talked about the things that we look for when we're looking for insights in an ObservePoint audit report. There's also an infographic that we designed for this session that I'll drop the link in the chat, and we'll also include it in the recap email today.
Awesome. So, thanks, Abby. I'm going to walk you guys through the agenda, and then we'll get into this topic. So, generative AI plus ObservePoint. When you guys registered for this webinar, you probably thought, you probably had your own idea of what this could be about. And I hope I cover and meet your expectations, and I hope you walk away today with a couple of really powerful use cases that you didn't think were possible before. I want us to use generative AI to unlock even more potential with ObservePoint. And I'll talk about how we've been doing that for some time already with some of our customers. And I'll talk about cutting edge use cases that just this past week we came up with that I think can have really powerful applications. So as we go through those sub bullets there, AI policies, AI news, top use cases, and example prompts. After that, we're going to transition and talk about AI chat for support, because we did recently launch an AI chat solution inside of our platform. Now I'm going to talk about how you can fully leverage that to get the best experience possible with support. So, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. So again, drop some questions in the chat. We'll be looking at the chat periodically, and we'll be excited to answer your questions. Okay, let's dive in. So for starters, I want to talk about policies, because I know we work with a lot of enterprises, a lot of companies with strict policies. And I was going to call out that if you have an internal AI policy that prevents you from leveraging AI, generative AI, this is still going to be incredibly valuable, and I'll tell you why. One is, even though you may not have access directly to AI solutions like ChatGPT or Cloud or Gemini or Llama, you will still be able to leverage our support and customer success teams who do have access. And an example, like for example, you could almost design or craft a prompt with our team, and then they could use that prompt to generate a script, right? And of course, that leads me to bullet number 2, which is, of course, don't give our team any sensitive data in your prompts. Be thoughtful, mindful. Just like You wouldn't want to send us an email with sensitive information. You wouldn't want to send us any kind of communication with sensitive information. So don't send us anything sensitive, and hopefully that eases some concerns around AI utilization. If you cannot use our AI chat solution, which we'll talk about the latter half of today, let us know and we can easily restrict access to your account. So you, instead of getting access to the AI, to an AI response, you'll be routed straight to a tech support team member. So just know that that's an option for you, and it's really easy. It takes minutes for us to exclude your account from having access to it. So let us know. Send me an email, Dylan@observepoint.com, DYLAN@observepoint.com, or you can mention in the chat, and we'll try to keep track of those requests. But again, I think when we'll talk in a little more detail about it, our AI chat solution doesn't send, it's I guess it's an enclosed model, meaning it's not like it's feeding information or insights that it learns to other companies. It's secure in that sense, and it's part of the one of the requirements we had for the solutions we picked for AI chat. And you'll find that it's actually a super intelligent search solution. You'll find that it's very powerful. And then I have a prediction that AI policies will become more and more, much more lax in the future. I think that as companies are still have been slow to adopt or maybe have a lot of red tape around AI, I believe that's going to change. And I think it's because overwhelmingly, like, people are going to have access to AI, whether it's through personal accounts, or through company accounts. Generally, it's going to be people are going to have access to personal accounts. And I think it's just eventually these enterprises are going to put together more secure AI tool sets, because they're also going to recognize the value and impact it can have in business, for their businesses and increase productivity. So it's coming. If you have thoughts or other predictions, drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and maybe if there's evolution of AI policies within your own companies. I'd be curious to know your perspective. Okay, AI news. I threw this slide in this morning because I was listening on the way here to work, and I thought about I was learning about the Llama 3 model announcement and model update announcement. This is a pretty big release, and as you guys may know, Llama is Meta's open source AI model, and they made a big announcement last week and surprised a lot of people with the performance of their model and the benchmarks. And what's maybe one of the biggest takeaways I had as I read more about this announcement is that now you can access ChatGPT 4 level or caliber models inside of Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. And if you just stop and think about what that means for the world, there are about 8 billion people, world population as of 2022. And the last census I Googled today, and about 4 billion, Meta claims about 4 billion unique users. So consider that about half the world's population who already have accounts with Meta now have access to this. And I show you on the right-hand side is an example of an a prompt I use with ObservePoint in mind as a use case, right? Let's scrape all the web pages for images. Can you write some JavaScript snippet that'll allow me to do that? I did all that within Facebook Messenger. So I think access is going to flood the world. And thanks to social media and other tools like this that already have a network that they're able to distribute this through. And I think it's only going to become more prevalent. It can also create images. It can do a lot of stuff. Anyway, this is not a commercial for Llama 3. I've actually been using ChatGPT pretty exclusively since adopting generative AI tools. And there's a lot of other benefits to the other ones too. So it's not really commercial for Meta, except that I do think it's pretty remarkable that everyone's going to have access, including my grandparents now have access to AI solutions. I never thought that they would have that at their fingertips. I thought they'd have to proactively seek it out, but it's right there in the search bar inside of Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, and all Meta. I think just those two Meta products for now. There also is a web client as well, just like ChatGPT, so you can access in the web. But I want to give this example in mobile to show you how it works, and it writes really good code. So, all right, let's get into use cases. So, as we get into use cases, I wanted to emphasize, like, the sky is the limit. There's so much you can do, and we're going to go through some examples today. One of the examples we're going to drill into is creating JavaScript snippets for custom insights and alerts. We'll talk about that. It's one of my favorite and most practical applications of ObservePoint and AI. We're also going to talk about getting advice on remediation. AI can actually teach us a lot about how to remediate issues with our websites. It can provide context around third-party cookies or tags or other data that we're collecting, console errors, other messages that fire, broken status codes, etc. It can also provide analysis of exported data, and we'll talk about that. I won't spoil it. I'll hold off. And then coming up with new use cases. So like if you found that, these first four weren't exciting enough, go and ask it for new use cases and describe your persona, your objectives, your role, and it will come up with more tailored use cases. It never ends. It truly never ends. And there's so much power in questions now, more power than ever before in the hands of really anyone. So if you become a great prompter, someone that can write prompts and ask questions, or command the AI to do certain things skillfully and strategically, you're gonna find there's a lot of power there. So, all right, let's dive in. So, example prompts. I'm actually going to slide on over to ChatGPT and walk you through some of these conversations I had just yesterday with ChatGPT. So in this first prompt, I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit, is an example about remediation. So I said, hey, I have a third-party cookie showing up on my website that I need to remove. What do you recommend I do? This was a very generic one. A much better prompt would be specific. I would probably specify the cookie name and domain and other detail. But it did give some really good guidance. It said removing unwanted third-party cookies from your website involves a few steps to identify and then block or restrict their creation. And I'll just focus on the main headers here. Identify the source of the cookie, which you can use using dev tools, but we recommend use ObservePoint because you can do it much better and at scale. Audit your third-party scripts, which is a great next step, right? Most of these cookies are sourced from tags and third-party scripts. Update your privacy settings and consent management, which is one of the next things you should be doing, right? Is it possible that this cookie is being fired because it wasn't governed properly by your consent management platform? Modified third-party integrations. So go and contact those vendors, contact third-party services, and modify the implementations of those third parties. And then there's more detail about implementing content security policies, which actually allows you to restrict scripts from firing. I thought this was great. Monitor and audit regularly. A plug for ObservePoint. Awesome. And then update your website's privacy policy. So just for general advice on how to resolve things is a great use case. One of my examples was or use cases was asking it for advice on for more use cases, right? And so actually, if you go to the top of this prompt, let's see, I said, let me go here. So come up with 10. I gave it a web scraping idea basically above, and then I said, come up with 10 more web scraping ideas that would be helpful for those that manage content on a website. And then it was interesting because it immediately thought of one of the first ideas was about competitors and scraping competitor content, which we're not going to condone that. In fact, we have policies that require you to have permission or express, permission to scan websites. So I went back and refined this prompt and I said, I cannot scrape competitor websites or websites that I do not own. Generate 10 ideas that with that input in mind. And then it started to focus more on my content, right? Content performance analysis, historical content auditing, internal link structure analysis, metadata and SEO optimization, which is a great use case. Accessibility compliance checking, a great use case, which we may even have time to show today. Multimedia content inventory, which is we talked about images, videos, podcasts. It's awesome to have ChatGPT validate and AI validate ideas that we already are taking advantage of. So there's more of these. Technical SEO health check, another great one. So I'll demonstrate some of those actually here in a bit. But it can come up with ideas, and it's one of its superpowers is coming up with ideas. Okay, this was awesome. So I actually took an export from ObservePoint, and I took a cookie inventory export from an audit I ran, and I said first analyze the data set attached. So I uploaded the data set, and it came up with definitions for each of the headers. And then it said, let's proceed with further analysis. Would you like a summary of specific aspects of this data? It was actually kind of like a butler. It was coming to me and saying, yeah, like what's the next thing you want to do with this? Here's some suggestions. And I said, what key takeaways do you glean from the data? And it went on and have a very full depth analysis. It kind of, I think it actually, this is the Python. It actually wrote Python to analyze the data in the background. I didn't actually interact with any Python. And I think it truncated this. Or actually, no, maybe it just highlighted cookie security. I thought there was a longer message before, but basically, like, look at this first one. Around 78% are set to be secure, indicating that they can be only transmitted over HTTPS, enhancing security against man-in-the-middle attacks. So, it's giving me recommendations, and I do believe it had like a much longer list. I think it just truncates it, when it's saved, and has been on the shelf for a day. And I said, how would I go about improving cookie security? It's going back to remediation, and it gave me some recommendations on what to do, and how to take advantage of the insights ObservePoint's providing you. So the list is very, very long of things that you could do. And then I wanted to test what it could do as far as actually modifying the data set. So I said, can you take the original data set I gave you and add a new column called cookie descriptions, and then fill out that column based on the cookie name in that row? And then sure enough, it's added a new column called cookie descriptions to the data set and filled it out based on the cookie names. And then it said, would you like to download the latest data set now? And I said, yes. So I got that file. I'm actually going to navigate back here, and I'll see if I can pull up that file for you so you can get a sense for what that file looks like. So this is the original file below, and my downloads, and then I have this file here. And the cookie descriptions column, it did add, and there were a lot that had no specific description available, which must mean that there wasn't enough metadata associated with those cookies for it to know. And a good portion of that is probably going to be because of first-party cookies, right? It's going to do really well with third-party cookies that's familiar with. Sorry, let me zoom in here a little bit. But it's going to not know first-party cookies as well. So that's one of the limitations. But you could apply the same thing to tags, and you could say, hey, write a description of these tags. Talk about, do your best to categorize these tags based on specific criteria. So there's a lot of power in being able to manipulate data sets like this, and I thought this was just a good example of how we could get started there. All using ChatGPT. Okay, next one, create ObservePoint rules. Now this one may raise some eyebrows. People are like, "What? You can create rules with ObservePoint with ChatGPT?" Here's my process, and there's a little bit of an asterisk on this one. I actually took a STR, basically a document of someone's variables and their tagging plan with ObservePoint. And I first uploaded that, and I said, okay, analyze this file and then use your knowledge of ObservePoint's REST API to create rules leveraging JavaScript snippets that can be executed in Google Apps Script. So I had to think about, okay, I need a script that I could execute in Google Apps Scripts, which is our location where we like to run our scripts. But you could do that in Python. You could do it on your local machine. You could do that a lot of different places. And I said, use your knowledge of ObservePoint's REST API. And what I've learned from asking ChatGPT and other AI tools about REST APIs is that generally the information is either outdated or incomplete. And it actually works. It tried to write a script, and I knew our API well enough to say that's not a valid payload. And I played around with it a little bit longer. Then I realized what I needed to do is I needed to tell it what a valid payload looked like. You can see ChatGPT apologizing. So it says, without direct access to the current documentation, my responses were speculative based on common API structures. And I was like, okay, caught you in the act, confession. So what I did, I actually tried once sending it a link to the documentation, which proved ineffective. And then what I did is I said, okay, let's see, I said, here's an example JSON body. Use this to improve your script. And afterwards, it gave me the best script by far. And it actually followed the correct JSON body format that I would need. Now, the actual contents of it were not great. And so this is where I get to the asterisk, which is I actually believe that we could get there 100% of the way. We could get there if we format the data set in a correct way. And this is something I'll probably be working with our team in onboarding, customer success in the future. But I actually think if we format the data set in a certain way to map to these rule payloads, to map to the type of data that the API needs, that actually we could use AI to generate rules based on a tag plan or an SDR. So really, really powerful application here. And this isn't as satisfying because we didn't get like a full end-to-end solution, but actually got a valid, like this would create a rule. It just wouldn't necessarily be leveraging the data set the way I want it to. So we need to work on formatting that data set. But absolutely, I believe anyone on this call could take it to the next level with a little bit of time and we'll crack the code. Okay, last, I'm going to walk you through this form search example. So one of my favorites, applications is creating scripts that you execute and on-page actions in an audit. You can do these in journeys as well, but it's really powerful in audits because while we scrape or crawl thousands of pages, we can go and find additional information that isn't already out of the box available in our reporting. We can now create new types of insights and new alerts around that data, and I'm going to demonstrate that. So for example, something we plan to build in the future is some kind of form inventory tool for our customers to be out of the box. But in the meantime, until that's built in our platform, we have AI to help us. And so I asked it to write a script that would find, I'll actually kind of take you through my journey a little bit. First, I started by saying, create a JavaScript snippet that scrapes for the word credit card. Okay, that was a different use case. Sorry, let me go to form. Okay, here we go. Create a JavaScript snippet that scrapes for all forms across all pages and then logs in the console any form names or IDs. And it did it really fast. And then I said, okay, sometimes the form name or ID will not be the exact attribute. Modify it to use contains logic for the attribute name. I mean, sometimes it'll be like, there'll be a special name for the form ID. It may not necessarily be ID equals this. Sometimes it's form dash ID equals this. So I said, look, as long as the ID is contained or the name is contained, like in this example, data dash form name or user ID, then I want that to be acceptable. And it did a good job there. And then I said, okay, modify the script to find forms that have a name or an ID, but not necessarily both. So I basically loosened the requirements a little bit, and it did a great job iterating on that. And then let's see, I think the last thing. Oh, I also asked it to exclude search because it was picking up forms on our search fields, internal search tools as a form, which is pretty common on many websites. So I asked it to do that, and I got my final code snippet. And it did include this event listener, which you can exclude. You don't need an event listener. You just need the guts of this because it'll execute on every page after the page is already loaded. ObservePoint handles the event listing just fine. Now let's get into ObservePoint. Let's talk about the results. So I ran the script inside of ObservePoint. I'll show you that snippet real fast. Very short snippet, not too difficult to read. It even comes with nice comments and showing how it excludes search, for example. And if you have other known knowledge about your website, like in the forms, for example, maybe you're using a certain content management system, and you know that some forms take the place of divs or using div tags, or maybe they don't expressly use the form tag. If you know that knowledge, providing that insight, I'm sure ChatGPT will be able to refine it to support you as well. But here's the script. It's pretty simple. And then if I get into, and I don't have to be technical to know it works, all I have to do is test it a couple of times and give feedback to ChatGPT. So you can test it on a page in the browser. I recommend that. And then when you're ready, throw it into ObservePoint in an audit. Now, because I asked it to, the script it created, I asked it to console log. I'm going to get all my insights in the browser console logs report. Here I'm filtered by info, and I'm searching for the word form, which is part of the message. And you can see here that a form was found on, it says 932 pages, and that there are specific, not every page had the form ID, which is interesting. So there were, you can see the form ID for several of these pages is found here, but not all of them had like a standard form ID, which means either I need to refine my logic or I have a lot of forms that don't have IDs. I'm going to go into one of these pages and just show you. One of these is our pricing page. So if you go to our pricing page, there's actually 3 forms that are hidden, and they only display after you interact with certain buttons. And so this is powerful because I didn't imagine how are your teams going to go find hidden forms that are only triggerable via button click. It's going to be very difficult, but ObservePoint was able to find it there anyway. So really, really powerful use case. Think about combining this. Now the next step is to go create journeys for those forms, especially the critical ones on the site, and then potentially apply rules to detect PII collected in those forms. So there's a lot of cool stuff we could do there. Be happy to help you walk through some of that, and I would ask that you reach out to your customer success team as well. So
Hey, Dylan, we
yeah.
got a comment from Ken Hill. It was sent just to us. Curious what you think about it. He said a possible use case might be when a journey step fails because the page changed. Could you use AI to read the page and what the step is trying to do and then generate new code to accomplish it?
Great question, Ken. Yes. So I had a team member that does this actually. They've become quite lazy. That's what AI does. It makes us lazy. And they'll find the element that they intended to click on or were having issues interacting with because the selector wasn't very good. They will provide that element and some context. They could either copy the whole page or they could provide just the HTML context around the element, paste that into ChatGPT as part of their prompt, and they could say, hey, create a CSS selector that would validate this element. And then you could even, just for fun, you could say, can you improve that CSS selector and see if it actually makes it even better, because AI can iterate and has to iterate sometimes to get the best results. So there's also, we hope that a long-term solution for journeys and journey maintenance and journey creation in the future is going to involve AI. And we have a very sharp CTO that's very astute with an ear to the ground, looking for the right type of technology vendors to partner with, or technology that we'll build ourselves to make that happen. But that's really future vision state for journeys. But absolutely, I think that's the way the technology is going to go. I think front end automation and QA is going to involve a lot more AI in the future. So, Ken, happy to chat with Jake Bauer, your CSM, after this, and we can visit some examples together. All right. Any other questions from the group before we shift gears? Let's dive into the next topic, which is the support chat. And I want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. So you guys may have noticed this little bubble in the bottom right corner. We actually made it a little more prevalent this past week, more accessible. It's only visible this way in the bubble form on the bottom right corner of the data sources page. We were careful not to make sure that it was blocking any other content on other pages. And if it's obnoxious to you, let us know. But we find that it's incredibly valuable to have that quick access. And previously you could access it in the left-hand nav under chat/email or help documentation. But there's a lot of power in this tool, especially with the AI upgrade. So you can now ask the AI questions like, how can I create an audit with login actions? And every time you guys ask this a question, it gets reviewed by a human after the whole conversations are reviewed, and we actually will improve our help documentation so that the response becomes a 10 out of 10 the next time. So if it's a new question, we may not have a great 10 out of 10 response, but the fact that you ask that question makes it so that we can make it better for the next person who asks it. It's a big part of our strategy is I have resources dedicated to reading these conversations, iterating our help docs so that every week you come back and use this tool, it's smarter and better. But we need people to adopt it and use it. We're very clear about how if the AI can't answer the question, we'll instantly connect you with the support team member instantly, based on availability, I guess. I should put an asterisk there, but we'll immediately redirect you to our support team. So if the AI doesn't answer your question, then to satisfaction, you can obviously move forward. Ironically, I think Ken was one of our first who asked the question, or was one of our first people to test this out. And Ken was so gracious, he thanked the AI afterwards because it gave him a response he liked. So I've seen Ken personally experience this, and I personally have experienced it. And you can see it can provide a lot of detail. Now, it's only as smart as our help documentation is, but it can actually combine different sources of help documentation. So what's going to be my project, my initiative is to double the size of our help documentation library so that the AI has even more information at its fingertips, and we'll work hard to improve the quality. But the goal here is to give you access 24/7 around the world in any language, responses to your questions. And obviously, where the AI fails to meet your expectations, we'll connect you with people. But this can give you some pretty quick answers. And this is actually a pretty good response. Navigate to the login page, input the username, input the password. It tells you the exact action types to use, and it's only going to get better. So It'll also give you a link to the help doc. So if you want to go like find the full help doc on the topic, this gets you there. So even if all this does is speed up your ability to find answers in our help docs, it's a huge win for you, and for us, because you'll get the chance to find those answers more quickly. Whereas most help sites, they have keyword search, and those keyword search not can be overwhelming. You'll put in a keyword like audits, and you'll get 10 help docs. Whereas this is going to give you much more precise responses. And then if you say that answer my question, awesome, thumbs up, great. If not, let's talk to a person. That'll prompt our team to go and respond. We'll have a little note here, disclaimer saying, hey, we'll be on it. If you don't see a reply here soon, go ahead and check back. You can actually see responses in this widget later on, or you can go to your inbox. Both are options to go find updates on these items. And we recently added a new capability around ticketing. So you'll be able to see tickets for unresolved issues. So not every conversation results in a ticket being created, because sometimes we can resolve it in real time with you. But if it's unresolved or there's some homework for us, then we'll create a ticket and you can see the status of those tickets. So pretty powerful. Always, and consider this kind of your support home that you can come back to. I'll also call out that we did just launch a new news site. So you'll find that there are updates that we'll be promoting through the news site. And you can click on this to find more details around recent feature releases. Okay. So a lot of powerful stuff. I'm going to save some time for QA, but give us feedback on these experiences, and we'd love to hear what we can do more to serve you guys and make it a better experience. So that's it for now. Let's see what questions we have.
All right, we've got one from Trent. When sending exported data sets into ChatGPT, are there any privacy concerns that we should be aware of?
Well, I think Trent, to answer your question, I would focus on um, I would ask and consult for your internal policies around AI. There's probably certain people within your organization, unless you're a pretty small company, there's probably people delegated to describe AI policies and what is not appropriate to upload. ChatGPT, if you're interacting with ChatGPT directly, there's less, unless you have like an enterprise license, which I think many companies do nowadays. But if you don't have an enterprise license, I don't think you're guaranteed security around sensitive data. So just be thoughtful about what data you do upload. If those data sets are anonymized, that may be something you can do. For example, you can remove the URL, and this could just be a table of numbers that doesn't necessarily mean anything to someone. So that's another way you might consider approaching that, is anonymizing the data or taking out any sensitive information, potentially sensitive information. So good question. Awesome. Other questions?
We don't have any more in the chat yet, so if you've got more questions, feel free to pop them in here. Dylan and I will hang around for a couple more minutes, and if not, thank you everyone for joining us today. You'll get a link to a recording for this and a summary of what we talked about with screenshots and everything, probably later today, maybe tomorrow morning. We just got a question from Brian. In your experience, which AI engine or tool works best for this type of work?
Yeah, I'd say the big ones that are usually in the news, I think Gemini, Cloud, ChatGPT. I'm interested in trying Llama and testing it more and more, especially because it's free, like the upgraded version is free. So I'm really interested in testing more of them, but I don't think anyone is that far superior for the types of tasks we're doing, analyzing data, um, or writing JavaScript snippets. I think you don't need a heavy duty solution to write JavaScript snippets. I think uploading files and analyzing files is something that ChatGPT has built better capability around. I'm not sure Llama yet can ingest like an Excel file and analyze it, so you might consider that. But it's constantly evolving, guys. You know the drill. It's in the news. It's every time, like every month there's something new being added. So I've been using the premium ChatGPT 4, like it's like $20 a month or something like that. And I just had the business expense it, and it's a great investment. I think it's absolutely accelerated my ability to write code and deliver solutions for clients. So GitHub Copilot, Kevin O'Connor mentioned. I think that's a great idea too, especially if you are in more of a developer role. GitHub Copilot's, I think, $100 a year license. But I've heard great things. I've heard lots of recommendations around it. So if you're doing a lot of coding specifically, I think that's a great idea. But again, like it's everywhere. Now that it's in WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, it's anyone can have access to AI pretty much. And so it's about, I do think it's important to find out the best tools, and figure out which tools work for you and which ones are going to be acceptable to the business. So even at ObservePoint, we have an AI, our chief technology officer dictates which AI tools that he approves, because we're just learning so much, and we want to at least understand what tools are out there before we go and leverage them. Good question. If anyone has any prompts they want me to try, like if you want to see AI create a snippet for web accessibility, technical SEO, I'm happy to try those if anyone's interested in those. But there's honestly so many use cases that like we can't even document all of them. There's just so many. But we want to and provide better and better documentation around these use cases. So
Cool. Well, the chat is, oh, here we go. How can AI help for retail customers, especially on the e-com side?
yeah, Rahinda, I'll answer your question. And I think Rob's typing in a prompt that we might try in a second. So Rahinda, so I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Rahinda or Rajenda. How AI has helping for retail customers. I would say writing scripts to identify information and validate information on the page is really powerful. So if there's required elements on these pages for like maybe there's like a recommended products panel that isn't necessarily consistently showing up because it's driven by a third-party technology, and you want to validate that that's working correctly, that's something you can do. Maybe there's certain HTML attributes in the HTML elements on these pages that you manage, and sometimes attributes have been missing in the past or inconsistently placed or inconsistently formatted. And those are all great applications. I think it's a great question to ask on the ChatGPT, right? Don't rely on Dylan to come up with these ideas, but ask AI how it recommends it, how it recommends helping you with retail customers. And obviously your question is pretty broad, Raj. Okay, got it pronounced right. So Raj, I think you can your question is pretty broad. So if we narrow it down to like how we can use it for ObservePoint, AI and ObservePoint can be combined for retail, that would be good to know too. But I would start by asking the AI for ideas and then narrow it down to your specific role. Like give it the context of your role, and it will come up with even better ideas. Rob sent me a prompt. Um, he said, "How can I scan my site to show the cookies created by third-party tags? How can I create this scan specifically for floodlight tags?" Actually, Rob, you don't need AI to do that. You can just use ObservePoint. We have a cookie initiators report that will tell you which tags are associated with which third-party cookies, and it will tell you even if it's a pixel that is first party, like a JavaScript file, on your website, it will tell you the source of that cookie. How can you create specifically for floodlight tags? It will already pick up floodlight tags out of the box, and then that will be included in the scan scope. So, Rob, let's chat after, and happy to show you and demo how ObservePoint can answer that question for you. Um, and I think if you use like a generic web crawler, I don't think a generic web crawler would have, like if you tried to execute something in the browser, I don't think it would have access to that data. It's data that's found in the network logs, and that's something that uniquely ObservePoint will be able to dissect for you and surface. So great question. Let me know if you're dissatisfied with that answer. Okay. Another question, JP, and I'll get back to Raj. Can OP mimic information that is available from Adobe Experience Platform Debugger? Currently, the debugger's audit tool is not working, and it's been down for a while with no fix on the horizon. Okay, so that's interesting. There's some stressed out people at Adobe right now, probably. So is it available? I think it would require, I think it kind of ties to my last response, JP, which is that the AI, like the applications we talked about for AI today, have been about client side web scraping generally. And so if I would assume that the Adobe Experience Platform, since it's parsing out network calls, network traffic, that won't be accessible on the client side. So I don't think we have a near-term solution with AI that we could use as a band-aid until they get it up and running. I think you need to kick and scream at Adobe until it's resolved potentially. Or, because I don't see Adobe building something. You could use our debugger, ObservePoint's debugger for analytics validation for Adobe or other technologies. But it's not going to necessarily have the full feature suite that Adobe Experience Platform debugger has. So. And JP said you can install it on Chrome. So, yes, absolutely. I'm familiar with the debugger. Um, Maybe your question is around, well, I guess, yeah, if we can get it in the browser, well, we might be able to install a Chrome extension, but again, the Chrome extension has to be working. So, we could go and, maybe put together a solution where we actually use Adobe Experience Debugger Chrome extension inside of our engines, but that would be a product effort. And again, I think it won't be reliable if the Chrome extension isn't reliable in your browser. So, okay, I think so. Yeah, Raj, for audits and journeys, I think the scraping the front end is probably one of the best applications for e-commerce. I think you're going to want to use it to find items out of stock on your websites, on product category pages, find items out of stock. You might find that there are certain parts. Another application would be on pages or forms where you collect sensitive information. You can use ObservePoint to identify those types of pages. Where are the forms where we collect credit card information? Where are the forms where we collect let's say you're an airline. I guess we're talking e-commerce, but I was thinking airlines collect a lot of sensitive information. But for e-commerce, anything around payment, I think is probably pretty crucial. And like understanding where do you collect that information and creating inventories of the forms or other collection points in the flow, I think are pretty powerful. So, all right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your participation. Thank you, Dylan, for all of your help today. Um, Our next tip jar is on how to remedy issues that you find in ObservePoint, and that's hosted by Clint Eager, who has been with ObservePoint for, I think, more than 10 years. He is a mega ObservePoint pro. So you can register for that now at observepoint.com/tipjar. We'll also include the link in the follow-up email, but we hope to see you there. We know that sometimes you find an issue in an audit and you say, okay, what now? So your exact, path to remediation will be different at every company, but we'll help you get started and let you know what it's like at a few different other companies. So we hope to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.